Okay, yeah, so it seems that we are live. Just to make sure, can you guys hear me? Oh, I hope so. Uh, okay, so, today this is like the first stream slash episode I'm planning on doing of discussing, the Doctor Who fans. What if Doctor Who wasn't axed in 1989? First episode, I decided to go with an easy one to start off the first episode with, so I'll be covering the movie Doctor Who Revelation. Okay, so first off, a little bit of backstory on what I think of not only of Revelation, but of the entire 11th Doctor's era. If you know me and you've seen me uh, going around what's the Discord, almost the wiki discussions and the comments, you know that I'm a big fan of the 11th Doctor's era, and uh, and especially of the 11th Doctor himself. He is my personal favorite of the What If Doctor Who wasn't Axe Doctors, just slightly ahead of 13. And and it's honestly one of my favorites. So I've been debating on whether to do this for a while now, on like which one it was, and I was debating of like which one do I do, and then I consulted a friend of mine who also watches the series, and they said Doctor Who Revelation, and then I was like, yeah, I guess that will work. And so that is what we're here going to discuss. So first off, Doctor Who Revelation released in. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull something up right now. It released on the 16th of February 2007 and starred Anthony Head as the 11th Doctor, along with other main characters from season 43: Timothy Dalton as the Rogue, Siobhan Redmond as the Ronnie, Louise James Louise Jameson as Leela, and and uh and and Claire Higgins as Ohelia. So the film begins with this amazing establishing shot of Gallifrey from up ahead. Thank you. Um, with the Master on board his ship, uh, and then he's like getting prepared for his attack on Gallifrey. And then we then cut to the planet, and we see the Doctor in his office debating, going off from where we left off with confrontation of the Wicked. Yeah, and and then in walks the Rogue with him debating of like, should I be leaving Gallifrey? Like, should I be leaving? Should I step down as president? This and that. And then in came in the Rogue saying there are time distortions above, and we need to get to the bunker. So the Doctor, the Rogue, the Ronnie, and Leela go down into the bunker. And then about a few minutes in, after they're talking, the Doctor collapses, and then one by one they each collapse. And then we fade in on the time vortex with the Master laughing, and then we see the Doctor wake up and inside like a warehouse with a bunch of old TARDISes, and then he goes to the TV screen. He sees like a TV screen, and it says Lord President Song, and he realizes that he is on the day he left Gallifrey. We then cut into the time vortex again, and then we get this very amusing scene with the Ronnie just sitting there in some sort of classroom, just like looking at everyone. There's like students coming in and just are looking disgusted at it. It's hilarious. And then we fade in, on the time vortex again, and then we see the Rogue, and we find out that he's in the past, that he is just between the 2-year period that the Doctor was trapped in the Matrix in season 42, we see him read a newspaper that says HT 1408 or uh, sorry, I'm really nervous about this. HT 1408 destroyed. And then he realizes that he's in the past. He walks up to some like comlink radio, and then realizes that he can't talk to anyone. And then we fade in on the time vortex again, and then we see Leela, and she's on Earth in a small little country village, and she's in the year 1922, I think it was called. Like, was it 1922? 1923. That she's on this little farm in the year 1923, and sorry, and that she and then she tries to communicate with everyone, and she realizes she can't. We then get like 20 minutes of each of the four main characters going around trying to talk to people they realize they can't, and then each one of them have to break out in this little dream that they're having. All four, they're eventually pulled out by the master, and Ohelia this is heard of Karn, and and they're like discussing of like how this was originally a trap for him. 1 second. And that my apologies for that. And that and that they needed to trap them in there to get their mental energy or something like that. And then they then trap them, but the master brings the doctor aside and asks him to get the sash of Rassilon for him. The doctor then is let go, and then we see him get transported down to Gallifrey when it's just nobody but him. We get this nice, really amazing establishing shot with him walking on a beach, just thinking, just talking and thinking to himself. And then my apologies. And then we have this beautiful, amazing music playing over it, which none of us didn't even realize until the first episode of it aired, but that was actually the theme for Panopticon. And then we didn't see him enter the vaults. He then grabs we don't realize it yet, but he grabs this metal bracelet thing. We don't realize it until like a few minutes later, but doesn't realize it's a time ring. And then we get transported back onto the monster ship, and then we see that he has all four of he has the Rogue, Leela, and Thorani all in separate prisons on their ship, and then that he says he's going to bring out he brings out a poplin pet, and that he's going to use it to transfer memories between them to eventually end up killing one of them, unless the doctor does what he says. We then transport back to the vaults of Gallifrey, and we see him pick up the sash of Rassilon. But then we see that the metal bracelet was a time ring. He activates it. He then transports on some ship, on like I think it's like his personal ship. He then kisses it, brings it back down, and then goes over to the master ship. They then meet up, have contact, and then they agree that he'll transmat over the sash if at the same time that that the monster transmats the Rogue, Leela, and the Rani over, and we do that. We see that they agree to those terms because nothing should go wrong if they do it at the exact same time. Excuse me. And then we see that happen. We see the Rogue, the Rani, and Leela land on the Doctor ship. However, the sash of Rassilon does not end up on the Master ship. We don't know where it is yet, but we find out later on that he actually teleported that to the Outsiders village where Leela mainly lives at. and then like the Monster, along with the Sisterhood, Karn get really, what's the right term? Pissed off, I guess, and then they engage in a battle that like a really like violent space fight that takes excruciating long amount of time and within about 20 minutes. So honestly, my only main complaint about the movie, and and I mean it's not the dumbest thing to come from a movie. It isn't the crazy multiple plot, multiple here this and that from the tra- teleport between each of the doctors and from the original one. It isn't like the very unexplained reason of the Vex coming in at the end of Leftover End of Days. And and then we see that the monster ship ends up getting destroyed and everyone on that ship dies except for the monster Ohelia and one other member of the Sisterhood. Let's see, I should have it. I think it's Othrina. I am not good with Gallifrey names. And then my apologies. And then the doctor, then they all head back to the doctor's office. They realize that they'll need certain enemies to fight the monster. So the doctor sends the rogue to go capture Fendonel, which honestly, why would you even try bringing him in? Like honestly, all he's gonna do is just cause trouble. And then so we see the rogue go off to get them, and then the doctor tells Leela to get her people ready at the Outsiders Village. However, before they can do that, there's like a call from Presta about how the monster went to the village and how he's taken hostages and this and that. Uh, and then the doctor goes, and then while all this is going on, we then see the rogue landing on this distant planet, and he walks through it very scared. You can honestly tell that, like, unlike how he is and how he mainly was in season 36 to 43 in season 43, and then when he regenerated from Derek Jacobi to Timothy Dalton, you can even tell that, like, nothing could scare him. However, when he sees the Dalek, you can tell, like, yes, I you Timothy Dalton, like, he just needs to give one look and you can tell what his emotion is. And then he finds Fendinel. He takes him back to Gallifrey. Meanwhile, before the monster heads out to the Outsiders Village, we then see them on Karn with the Doctor. I mean, not the Doctor, the monster. Talking to him about to the Sisterhood of Karn, and then them, like, one of them, Ohelia, slapping him and then yelling at him for causing the death of many members of the Sisterhood. She and oh she and Haspira or Athena leave to head to the doctor's head to Gallifrey to meet with the doctor to tell him that the monster needs to be stopped no matter what. At the same time they land on Gallifrey, the Rogue and Fendinel arrive on Gallifrey they all then, however, due to everything, like the cities are now in havoc and they just need to bear it, and they need to we see like this really long drawn out scene of them hopping through streets with people trying to stop them, asking them what's going on, this and that. Then they finally make to the doctor's office, and then the doctor says that he is going. We then cut to see the monster and the doctor talking again, and then agreeing to a mind bending contest similar to what we saw in The Return of Morbius. And then the doctor says that he's going to do this, and he agrees that they'll do it at the Outsiders Village at noon. I think it was, like, if I remember correctly, this part was taking place early in the morning. And then my apologies. And then we see them go to said contest where the Rogue and the Ronnie bring out the mind-bending thing that we saw in The Return of Morbius, and they enter it, and we see this crazy, intense, well, it may not seem as intense as you'd probably think it would be, but, like, we see that this is honestly doing harm to them. We even see faces of their previous incarnations. We see for the Doctor, we see William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Richard Griffiths, Paul McGann, Richard E. Grant, and Anthony Head as well. My apologies. And then we see the only face we see of the monster that we recognize is Jeffrey Belden, who plays the monster in this movie. I honestly thought he was really more of a mediocre monster. Thank you. That I felt like he was all right. Just it felt like that after, like before we saw him in Leftover Series 4, the last time we saw him was in 1996 with Revenge of the Monster, and because of Sanderman, just Sanderman being Sanderman, thinking, oh, it's not like we can just have him regenerate and have him in a new serious incarnation. Let's create someone completely else that is also a friend of the Doctor, or who he went to school with, and the Doctor never mentioned until now with the Rogue. I mean, yes, Derek Jacobi and Timothy Dalton, they're both great actors. However, I feel like they could have just have honestly, Derek Jacobi, I can honestly end up seeing playing the Monster, and Timothy Dalton, I don't know. They probably just created a new character for him that ended up being really popular, and then so he could start off in Panopticon. And one other thing I really realized about this movie, it's essentially just the backdoor pilot for Panopticon. I mean, yes, Panopticon was good until, well, you know. and I'm sorry, I lost track of thought. And then anyway, back to the competition, we see that it's taking a toll on both the Monster and the Doctor. However, at the last second, the Doctor loses. He gets knocked back and he dies. However, the Monster still being tired with him basking in his glory, he leaves the mind bending machine. However, with him basking in his glory, he doesn't see Leela coming out from right behind him, and then her challenge him, and then completely overpowering him in about no time, and then him falling back dead. And then the Doctor, and then we see Ohelia feed a potion to the Doctor, and it's enough to make him regenerate, but it's not enough to save that incarnation of his. He's going to regenerate, and then he stands up, and my favorite line of the entire Anthony Head era, "This is it." And then he walks, and then a yellow glow surrounds his face, and then we get more, and then and he keeps on walking until we see his 12th incarnation, portrayed by Patterson Joseph. While Joseph is good, what really surprised me is that looking from behind this, yeah, thank you. I think that the stream is like very very behind. My apologies over that. Uh, that what really surprised me is that I'm gonna bring it up here on my computer so we can take a look at, is on how diverse the actors were on who was chosen for the 13th, well, not 13th, the 12th Doctor. Like, we obviously had Patterson Joseph. Two big names were mentioned. First one being Peter Capaldi, who went on to play Grigori, and then Alexander Siddig, who went on to play Fassel, but also some other like names like known to pop from like known to unknown, like Andrew Lincoln, Kevin McKidd, Noel Clarke. Just some people that you probably go like, oh yeah, I know who that person is, or like some people are going like, who is that? And then honestly, it's just what really surprised me is on how diverse it was. Like, I mean, thank you. I would have to say thank you to Gary Russell for for casting someone who is behind of African descent. Thank you for doing that. I think that honestly, by that time, yeah, it would have been, instead of just a normal Caucasian male, that we needed something like either have his skin color change or have him be a woman. Honestly, I would have been fine with either one. I mean, I can just honestly just I'm just happy that they didn't went with the standard white male. The Doctor then takes the sassafras lung from the outsiders. They say, "Don't worry, just let me deal with the master." And then he runs over to him, and then the master explains that for some reason, and while I love this, it baffles me this that all the way back in the war games, that he was originally one of the Time Lords at his trial, and that I'm trying to bring it up here, that for the master, that he was I think we got a flashback to the war games, and we saw pointed out that Trevor Trevor Martin, who honestly, in my opinion, seemed like was one of the Time Lords on the Doctor's side in that trial, who like let him say goodbye to all of his companions, that he all that time was the master. And then, like, honestly, while I loved that, I just got confused. And then came that big shock, the revelation of the film. The Doctor then asks, "Then why'd you come to Earth with the nesting conscious if you wanted the universe all yourself?" The monster says, "Who? Like, I have never met the nesting conscious. Who are they?" And then he regenerates into the form of Roger Delgado, which I think we can agree none of us saw coming. None of us. Anyway, the Doctor has the rogue sedate him, and then he takes him off world. We then see the Doctor going into the Panopticon, and he makes the address saying that he'll be stepping down as Lord President, and then the rogue will be taking over as Lord President of Gallifrey. And then while some people were upset that the Doctor was leaving, because honestly, look at the previous leaders. The only good one was Romana. Well, that we actually saw, that didn't turn out to be corrupt. And then I'm sorry. And then I cannot think right now. And then we have him say goodbye to everyone. And then we see him in his office. He takes off all of his robes. It's just him in his trousers and shirt. And then we get the best shot of the entire movie. The Doctor then goes into the TARDIS, and we see the brand new console room. And that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. That console room is possibly my favorite in all of Doctor Who history. Like, if I was the Doctor, if whatever console room I would want, I'd want that one. Well, maybe the season 33 variant of the ninth Doctor console room. Anyway, the Doctor pulls a lever. You get the same establishing shot of Gallifrey from the original movie. TARDIS goes away, and then ending credits. So, Doctor Who Revelations. It was an all right. Like, it's a great film. Like, in my opinion, of the 4 movies that we've seen so far, it's the best. I mean, that it may be because A God was wrote. If you didn't know, Robert Sherman was one of the 2 writers on it, and we all know how amazing that is. And what but there's one thing I wanted to point out here for the final section before I'll ask people from the audience or from the live stream of what they think of the film. One thing I want to point out, that this was the last 11th Doctor Tony Redston era, like, story or serial or whatever you want to call it. And I just want to say on how underrated that era was. Like, there are some eras that, well, yes, it's not my favorite. It's not the Barry Letts or the Gary Russell era, but well, in my opinion, it's up there. But, like, it isn't as bad as the Chris Sanderman era or the J&T era. or controversial opinion, the Stephen Garwood era. And then, honestly, just they were good. They were fun. 11th Doctor is still my favorite Doctor. Like, if we were to take out all them, if I was to rank them of all the Doctors that we know of, from the first one, William Hartnell, to the 13th, David Suchet, I can, like, I have the list right here. Just let me pull that up ahead. I I made like a whole discussion page of it on the Wikia. Like, how I would, like, the 11th Doctor would be number one for me as my favorite, then the 7th, Sylvester McCoy, then 13th by David Suchet, and then just, I honestly should have prepared better for this. This film showed people that, hey, it turns out we were wrong about this era. It turned out it was actually pretty good. I think it's honestly was because that, like, the original change to, like, the 90-minute slot made it really jarring, and because of that, ratings drop, and this film had a lot lower budget than it should have. I mean, it still turned out great even with the budget it had. But at least this film showed people, oh, hey, that was actually pretty good, and it gave CBS to up the budget of for season 44, which it honestly deserved that. It was such an amazing, and thanks to Revelation, season 44 was season 44. Anyway, so do I have anything else in my notes? I'm gonna save that information for the Conversation of the Wicked and Decision of Karn for later. Uh, did that, did that, did that. Oh, I have one more thing left in my note that I in my notes I have not mentioned yet, and it just says, just this: make joke of the 14th Doctor. Anyway, so let's see here. Let me ask you guys this for so far only two of you. Well, okay, for the two of you who are watching, what do you guys think of Doctor Who Revelations? Like, okay, okay, anyone? Okay, Time Lord Master 108 said, I love this film and I agree with you with all your opinions. My only gripe is that they should have had Delgado scene when he regenerated. Yeah, that should have been part of the soundtrack. That definitely should have been part of the soundtrack. So anyway, this is my first time doing this. I apologize, I went in completely unprepared. I am so sorry about this. I should have prepared better. I definitely want to do more of these. I'm heavily considering me doing more of these. I definitely, like, I have, like, let me pull it up. Where is it? Where is it? My apologies. It's taking forever. So I definitely want to do for four more stories, and then I am not sure if I'll call it quits after that. If I'll do more, I'm definitely in the future going to do Who Killed Kennedy, Doctor Who Revelation, no, not Doctor Who Revelation, Doctor Who Vengeance, the first game, and I want to discuss the season 4 Panopticon premiere Rapture, and why I think that is quite possibly the worst episode in Panopticon history. And this is coming from someone who thinks Panopticon is quite possibly the best spin-off Doctor Who has ever had. Anyway, so yeah, that is Revelation. Tell me, for people who are watching this, as a video on demand. Tell me what you think about it. Should I do more? Should I not? I will see you guys in my next one, which will probably be most likely be Vengeance, if anything. So I'll see you in my Doctor Who Vengeance live stream /video.